Hello, everyone. I'm so glad. Welcome to Courageous Conversations. Hi, Cherene Francis. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Victoria.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so honored that you're here. I've been such an admirer of yours. I've been listening to your lives, and I just really love your vibe. And I really feel like we are living in such important times that I wanted to have you totally be a part of this conversation and lead it in many ways. But before we do, we're going to do a little bit of sharing. Both of us are going to do some sharing,
Yep.
and so that we can have ourselves be seen widely. So there you are. We're just going to start a watch party on a couple of different groups, and then we're going to really get to it. So that's awesome. And also, I want to say that our journey here together is one of, I think, positive intention. So everyone should know that the reason we're doing this, we may not say it perfectly, but we are absolutely intending for positive, transformational change. And that is my vibration that I emanate as much as possible.
Yes.
So anyone who's joining us and wants to ask questions and wants to participate, please join, because I think this should be an interesting conversation. So Cherene, the first thing I want to ask you is, you have a really, I don't know, cool human potential is what you're in the business of. You're a coach. You do a lot of human potential getting from other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And, how long have you been doing this work? What's your history in this?
Okay, so formally as a board designated coach, about 5 years now. Before that, I've been coaching, counseling, mentoring since I was a teen, in youth groups, youth programs.
Okay.
I've been in leadership as far as I can remember, really kindergarten,
Right.
putting on events, asking the principal, can I lead this program? So I've been in areas of leadership all my life. It's definitely something I was born to do. But formally, I've been in the coaching industry for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, 2020 was my 10th anniversary.
Okay.
And then having formal designations in areas of mindset, human potential, high performance thinking for about 5 years now.
So you're the person I want to speak to, because we're living in transformational, important times. We were chatting before we went live. Every single area of the social experience is on fire right now.
Yes.
Is looking to be decimated in some way in order to be replaced with something better and more equitable and more fair, and this, the purpose of us today is, how can we overcome prejudice and racism as a white ally? That is something I'm interested to promote as a concept. And what I really was struck by you was when you said, when I heard you on an interview, you're saying, look, at a surgeon can stitch up a wound, but if you don't clear out the gunk and clean it out fully, it's gonna fester. It's gonna get infected. So how can we apply that to prejudice, racism, in your mind?
Right. So the process is the same, but the experiences and the nuances of it may be different for each person, whether you be a person of color, Black, Indigenous, and white.
Yeah.
So, but the key thing is first acknowledging that it's there. Whatever you deny, and you're oblivious to, you obviously cannot address it, right? If you don't know what the root of the problem is, you can't solve the root. You got to pull the weed from the root. And so largely in part, what has happened over the past couple of weeks is an awakening, or a big awareness of some gaps that we have in our cultures and humanity, where life and upholding life is concerned. And so the beginning of anyone overcoming prejudice or
Right.
racism, I believe that everyone has a sense of prejudice where they prejudge based on their paradigms or what they think to be
That's
true.
right.
Whether a Black person or Indigenous can be racist or not is a debate. I don't really entertain debates, just because my thing is, let's get to the root and then pull. Right. It's
Yeah.
not about offending anybody or anything. It's about, let's just get better as a humanity. Right.
Yeah.
Let's do whatever it takes. So I think the first step is awareness, which I love that a lot of people that have not been aware, even myself, I have to say this, even myself, the depth of ignorance that was I was unaware of came to light. And I think right now that a lot of people are aware and or willing to say that it is there, now what can happen is the process of cleaning up, digging the root. And in the analogy that you're referring to that I spoke about,
Yeah.
really it hurts a little bit, right? Like if you when you get a splinter, or
Yeah.
my nephew, I saw him the other day, and he had a splinter in his foot.
Yeah.
And you know how when you pull out the splinter, it hurts, right? You gotta pull out the glass or the splinter or the bullet or whatever it is
Yeah.
in order to heal. You cannot stitch up. We can't just say, okay, we're gonna slap on some stuff. We got to get to the root.
Yeah.
We got to pull out the gunk. We got to address and be humble about where we stand or where our shortcomings are on whatever side you are. And then that's when the healing begins. So there's a bit of a firing. There's a bit of a part, a pressuring that happens. They talk about diamonds. They go under the pressure and
Yeah.
and there's all those different analogies of first experiencing the hurt, the pain, the grind before you can actually experience the shine. So I think that's what people need to come to terms with right now, that it's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit.
I like the word humble, and I like the word awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And awareness alone can do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But awareness is the first step, but alone it can do nothing. Action needs to happen, I think, is what
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about here. And I think also one of the things that in the book White Fragility talks about is defensiveness. It's like, I'm not, I'm just super liberal and I'm super, and I really appreciate when people, because as a psychotherapist, I'm looking at the nuance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tuning into the edges of things. And so I feel like this is the same thing that needs to happen. We aren't doing anyone any service, I think, if we just create defensiveness. No, that's not true. I think it's what do you think about people being defensive when they are, or at least approached even gently about perhaps there is some prejudice? Because
Right.
small amounts of subconscious prejudice, I believe, needs to be aired out to be healed.
Yeah, that's a complex one there, right? Because what usually happens is when you're in co-creation. What I mean by that is when you have two individuals or two parties saying something, and one party is saying it's not there, and the other party is saying it is there.
Right.
Often what happens is one party has to get louder in order for the other to hear.
Right.
Or naturally speaking, a pattern interrupt needs to occur so someone could stop and pay attention, which we've seen happen right?
Absolutely.
So I mean, the defensiveness usually comes with why someone usually is defensive is because it acceptance of a reality is one going to take. It now gives you ownership and responsibility, right? Now, I have to actually deal with the problem if it's actually there. Right. Whether or not you think it's there, it's your due diligence to seek out and see, okay, the nature of what's actually happening. So you know, it's easy to have a defense because you don't have to do the homework. You don't have to do the heavy lifting. You don't have to get emotionally uncomfortable. You don't have to do any of that. You can just act as if it's not there. So defense, you know, and then there's people that honestly don't see it, or don't, you know, they feel as if it does not exist.
That's a huge one.
Yeah, that one's a little bit more tricky, because, you know, and that's where I think a lot of uproar has happened, because
there you go.
For a long time, one party is saying, this is here, please acknowledge it. What can we do about it? Peacefully, for decades and hundreds of years. And, you know, as I said before, the problem gets louder and louder. That's just, this is physics we're talking about, right?
That's right. So when we're talking about what it means to be a white ally and what we can still do to overcome prejudice and racism, it sounds like, number one, acknowledge there's a problem.
Yeah.
Like actually get in and become aware and acknowledge there's an issue. Educate yourself on the fact that it is, you don't have to do anything but read about it, understand about it, and speak to people who have experienced racism and prejudice.
What's interesting, Victoria, is like, I work with people every day, coaching them on human potential. And one of the agreements that I have in place, or any, you know, I'm sure you have it in place too. If a person comes to you to solve a problem, but they're not willing to acknowledge certain behaviors that they're doing that perpetuate the problem, contract ends there. Like you can't even begin, because they are not willing to see what is causing the problem. So it's the same thing here. In any case of transformation,
that's right.
It starts with awareness and acknowledging.
I think there was a great, I don't know if you saw this teacher in the 70s. She did an experiment with kids, blue eyes, brown eyes. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and I mean, it just was so incredible. But I think that what she was doing is what needs to happen, which is to actually, you have to experience. Like, I have experienced one time when I was in my 20s, and I was going to, I don't know, a club on Sherburne. I was going to a dance club, and I was wearing one of those fake Rolexes, you know, those fake Rolexes that we buy, you know, for $20 or whatever. Anyways, I was wearing that. I was all fly. I was all happening. I was going to go dance. This was in the early 90s. And a cop said, "Hey, you, get over here. Get over here." I was like, whoa, what's happening? What is going on here? And he's like, "Where'd you get that?" I said, "At Young and Bloor for $20. Like, I just went right to that. You know, he's like, "No, that's real. And that guy thinks you stole it from him." I'm like, "Whoa, I didn't steal it. Are you kidding me?" And so the more I protested, the more the cop said, "You're guilty." The more I said, "Are you kidding? Look at this thing. It was heavy. It looked real." I said, "It's not like, what are you saying to me?" And I just remember feeling helpless. I remember feeling like there is no way I can get through to this cop. And he was basically judging me. He says, "You're a girl. You definitely, you for sure taking advantage of this guy. And he's ID'd you." I looked evidently like this other woman that had stolen a watch from him. And I remember just panicking, just thinking, how can he won't believe me no matter what I say. I felt helpless. I felt afraid. I felt depressive. I felt sad. I felt anxious. I felt destroyed. Finally, the guy, you know, said, oh, it's not her, or whatever. That's not, you know, they got it after half an hour, 45 minutes. It's not her. It's not her. And I was like, I went home. I literally hopped a cab and went home. I couldn't deal with what was going on. But just imagine that's like what is that, a 2% experience than what many people of color experience, where they're innocent and their pleas are not heard, and they are profiled, and they are told that they are doing something when often they are not. They are being assumed to be bad when they are not.
Yeah.
And that was, I know that for me at 20, I think I was 27 at the time, or 26. That was a 25, 24, I don't know, I was young. A watershed moment for me. I was like, you know, and I feel like people, what do you think about this notion that people, in order to feel a true sense of compassion and empathy, they got to go through their own shit, essentially, to be able to feel it? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the time the prejudice is unconscious, so it might be under the table and you might not even realize it. What's interesting is I did a Facebook Live the other day with a white woman who was sharing her experience of prejudice, walking down the street in the nighttime, passing by a Black man, feeling her heartbeat raise, feeling that she should maybe cross the street. But because of all the awareness that's going on, she caught herself and said, wait a second.
Disrupted it.
Where is this heartbeat fast going? Why am I thinking to cross the street? Where did that come from? And for her, that was her awakening. That was her awareness.
Nice.
And so, you know, I'm not saying that is the solution, just awareness, but it's the first step. The very fact that she could, because before that incident, we both had conversation, and you know, we're really good friends. I love her to death. She said, Cherene, I'm not racist. I don't really understand. I feel like I can't identify as a racist, or, you know, I feel like I love Black people. And I said, I love you, Marsha. Her name is public because you could see the video on my live. I love you too. And then 2 weeks later, that incident happened. And she said, I have to confess that this thing happened, and I'm going to do my work. I'm going to do the inner work. And I was like, you know,
beautiful.
Amazing, right?
It's a disruption of an autopilot response, is what she did. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I just love that. And I think a lot of people want to be looking at that. Want to be analyzing that reactivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know, being open to self-awareness is a practice, and I think that culturally speaking, that more and more people are tuning into mindfulness practices. I'm sure people that are following you are aware of that. And this is where it begins. It's not just in the assigned meditation that you have in the day or in, you know, in the nighttime. It's your day-to-day of being aware of how your body is moving, how your emotions are reacting to your environment.
There you go. Love this.
Right. And so prejudice is just a response based off of past programming, conditioning. The conditioning comes from our family, from our school, from the media. And largely in part, I believe that a part of ridding ourselves of prejudice is going to have to be with seeing more content that puts all peoples in wonderful depictions in a balanced way, right? Our media news and all of that needs to change. And that's why, and it comes back to the beginning of what we said, which is everything is being disrupted right now for our good. I believe, at least. I believe.
And also I'm encouraging people to, I love it what you said, that your friend was like realizing that she was on an autopilot reaction, that she had no consciousness of it until she said to herself, be conscious of this. Ask yourself what you're actually experiencing and where is that coming from specifically. And I think that is such a powerful exercise. Also, we have a situation with our mask wearing where we're not seeing people smiling. Like I'm constantly telling people, I'm smiling under here. I'm smiling under here. Really, I'm smiling under here. You know? and I'm telling people, I'm kind of going, and then I go back. You know, I probably shouldn't do that, but whatever. I do it because I am missing I love, and I encourage people to look at people in the eyes, all colors, humanize people.
Yes.
Humanize the homeless person. Humanize every single human being. I was walking in the park the other day and it was sort of dark. And there was a guy who was coming through the not on the path. He was coming through the bush to come and join us on the path. And I didn't know who that was. And I just went, oh, because I just heard someone walking through. And he was a gentleman of color. And he says, oh, I'm just coming. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I'm like, you didn't scare me. I just didn't know what was going on. He's like, I'm just coming off of my shift. I'm like, me too. I said, I'm off work too today. That's why I'm going for a walk. How you doing? What's happening? And we had a joke and we had a kibitz, and we sort of kibitz, that's a Yiddish word for a moment of funniness. But afterwards I said to my husband, I said, wow, he thought I was scared. I wasn't scared. I was just startled because of the moment of that was going on.
Yeah.
But our comedy and our love and our moment chilled it out, and we were like human, two human beings off work, chilling out on a path, having a walk, and it was beautiful.
I love it.
You know?
I love it.
I know. And that's what's needed, I feel. This away.
It's totally that, humanizing it, and the best way to do that is just realizing that you're connected to that person. You know, with I don't know with what period it is, but I think it was the Renaissance period where people had this whole thing of, you know, going in and the ego and the self.
Yes.
And there was a sense of community lost in self motivation and gaining self, like just for self and focusing on self. There was
individualism
a time when we learned that, you know, you can be there and I can be here, and we're separated, but that's a deception. We're actually not separated as a humanity, and everywhere we are all human. We are all a human race. And as soon as you can realize the connection at some point, realize that they're a living, breathing person just like you, then compassion starts to trigger in the heart. And you have wonderful situations like that where you run into strangers and it's like you've always known each other.
I think what you're saying, Cherene, is that compassion and empathy are part of the ways to overcome racism and prejudice. Truly, truly.
Absolutely.
Feeling the other person's journey. Step into their shoes. I lead people on visualizations of that. Just like step into their shoes. What must it feel like to be them?
Yeah.
And it's powerful. It's powerful.
It's powerful. Yeah.
More people need to do it. I wanted to ask you about discomfort. About the discomfort of speaking about this stuff, about the discomfort of all colors, you know, cancel culture, and, you know, and firing for saying the wrong thing, and the discomfort that's showing up. And I get concerned that people get a little too afraid to speak up because of some of the repercussions. What can you share about that or think about that?
I love that question, because a lot of the times we think we need to rid our environment of the things that trigger pain in our lives. So we'll mute ourselves or mute certain channels or perspectives because we feel that it is going to be discomforting, or you want to stay on a positive note, or you got to stay focused on your business. You can't be distracted. When we have an approach to success by manipulating our outside experience, meaning letting certain voices or perspectives or things that trigger us in or out, versus focusing on our body response to our environment,
right,
then that's where the problem is. You have to remember that, you know, and I might get some people that totally disagree with me on this, but for example, there are certain historical monuments and or pictures that that stand for certain things. I agree with some of them being gone, but here's the thing. If I am looking at something outside of me that brings a remembrance of pain or hurt in my past, I truly have not healed from that past yet. That's really what that is. When we say forgive and forget, it's not necessarily that you forget the incident that happened.
Right.
It's the perspective of you and how that has affected you that you need to change. If you can find empowerment in your pain or your trauma, that's when you're set free. And that's where your potential is just fascinating. And I don't know if I'm going above head. Some of
No,
you
no.
might not get that concept.
What you're saying is that if a statue, okay, so what I'm hearing you say, there are people tearing down the statues, the racist, you know, the Confederate statues in the States, and different. What you're saying is, leave some of them up to remind us that there was pain there. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, it has nothing to do with the statue. It has to do with your perspective of the statue. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying to tear them down or keep them up.
Okay.
What I'm saying,
the person who's reacting to it.
Your reaction,
work on that.
Whatever is happening, you got to learn how to do the internal work so that that doesn't throw you off, so that that doesn't make you go back into a fit of, you know, I'm hurt and whatever. It's so that you can have the strength to speak and make changes and maybe put up some other statues that are empowering. I'm not saying, hear me clearly, everybody. I'm not saying what statues, what movies, what, you know, food labels need to be changed. I'm not saying that.
Talking about internal reaction.
I'm talking about internal reaction to your reality.
Right.
And so to answer your question about what do we do with feeling uncomfortable during these conversations and whatever, is you need to go inside and ask yourself, why are you uncomfortable about this conversation?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that whether you're a Black person, an Indigenous person, a white person, get aware, much more aware of your reactions to life, to people, to situations. And in the case of what I'm really interested in is in a person who is a white ally, who has every intention of being positive, of being helpful to the situation, of overcoming racism and prejudice. That's a big piece of how you actually undo it. It's not so much overt, it's an internal process. Is that what you're saying, Cherene?
That's it.
It's an internal process.
That's it. That is it. Internal process, paradigms,
yes,
behavior, perspectives.
There you go. Yeah.
Internal, there's no outside transformation without inside transformation.
That's what we're talking about. I mean, you're a coach, I'm a psychotherapist. We work with human transformation, and you can attend every rally, you can write every article, you can do, but if you can do it and keep doing it.
Right.
But what's happening on the inside is what's really going to change the tsunami in a tsunami way. That's what's really going to change things.
Exactly. That is exactly what I am saying.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And it takes, there's different levels of understanding that concept. It really is going to take you know, we refer to them as conscious entrepreneurs or conscious practitioners.
Conscious leaders.
Conscious leaders, but it's going to take those initiatives that are willing to put into place things that are going to help people reflect and internally make those transformations in order for that to happen. And that's a part of, when I say human potential, that's my mission.
Yeah.
Creating content, speaking, getting involved with anything that's about changing the human condition. The human condition, all behaviors, all things proceed from us. We are the creators of our reality, collectively and singularly. When that happens, then we will see the release of things such as prejudice, racism, and any other things that are not fruitful.
So it's an inside job.
Yes.
But it's an institutionalized thing that's going on. It's a multi-generational, institutionalized, racist, prejudiced problem.
Yes.
So I believe it's awareness plus action.
Yes.
Plus courage equals change.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be all of it. But it starts with that internal disruption of the unconscious and subconscious prejudices that we carry with us.
Yes.
And that's the beginning. That's the beginning.
Yes. Yes. Mic drop. Let's do the work now, right? Yeah.
As a mom of two young Black girls, gorgeous. I've seen their pictures. They're so freaking cute. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I love them. Okay, so they're going to be women. You're raising women. What's your, like, what do you say to them? How old are your kids? How old are your girls?
I have a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old. She's turning 6 in a month. Yeah.
So cute. They're so cute. Yeah. And we develop our worldview by the time we're 6 or 7. So they're exactly really seeing the world. And what do you say? Again, this is what I want to have you tell us is, there are many parents raising children, white, Black, brown, yellow, doesn't matter, purple. What are we saying? What are you saying to the kids? What do you think?
I love this question. And this is going to take discernment on every parent.
Yes, of course.
I believe that there's some children that don't need to have this conversation because the amount of change that will occur by the time they step into workplaces and or university or bigger spectrums, I think our culturally speaking, it won't really be what it is right now.
Right.
However, I remember that my daughter she's very gifted in her reading. So she's like a couple of grades ahead in her reading. And because of that, in her tablet, at her reading level, it had higher subject matter.
Oh, right.
She ended up coming across a book on racism, which would have been in a grade 3 level. She's only in grade 1. And I remember her reading the book, and I didn't know she was about to read a book about Martin Luther King, and I didn't know that, right? And I got shook because in that book, I knew she would be reading about a time when someone of her color was not loved. So I got scared, and I ran with my husband. I'm like, oh my gosh, should she be reading that right now?
Right.
And she read the book, and the thing is, when something is in your nervous system, you have a reaction. When it's not in you, you don't really have a reaction. You're kind of oblivious to it.
Right.
So she was reading it, but it was like she didn't quite understand it. Like she didn't know why that Rosa Parks wasn't allowed on the bus.
Wow.
She didn't realize it was a skin color thing. It was just like, well, why did she have to sit in the back? It wasn't clear to her. And I was about to entertain the conversation or the topic that there was a time that, I was about to say that there are people that don't like you for your skin color. I was about to say that. But what I realized is in order to move forward, you have to speak what you want to happen. Okay? So there's a bit, and so this might seem a little strange, but it's like, well, you just said we have to acknowledge the problem. But the thing is, in her reality, that problem doesn't exist. She goes to a highly multicultural school.
Yeah.
Everybody's good, whatever. So in that moment, what I did do is I explained to her the history of how human behavior was and how it is now and what it also can be. And I think that when we as parents, so my point is when we as parents talk about this, I think it's important that we don't just focus on the what is. Anytime you want change, you got to focus on the what is and what can be.
The potential.
The potential. So that's my advice. For me, I had that brief conversation. I said there was a time when, and sometimes this could happen, but this is what can be, and this is what is happening. And I pointed to what is the beauty of, loving everybody no matter what, whether they're boy, girl, color, all of that type of stuff. And she wasn't interested in the conversation. To her, it was foolishness. She was just like,
What's the big deal?
Like, love each other.
Kids are.
Yeah, right. So I didn't have to like pound it into her, like, watch out for racists. No, don't do that. But it, again, discernment. So maybe your child did experience racism.
Right.
Maybe they are, I don't know.
That's the thing. There's a lot of kids that do experience that in school, and there are a lot of kids today
Right.
that are experiencing that in school, and there are a lot of white kids who are perhaps they are taught it. They heard, it's not taught, it's caught. It's caught osmotically,
Right.
And that's what I want, again, white allies to get, that sometimes prejudice is a very subconscious thing that is just caught, that is just happening at a very, very subconscious level. Even if you're a super liberal person, whatever, be aware of that. And kids, I think, as a psychotherapist, I think that is something that kids need to know about. But I also appreciate what you're saying, is talk about the potential of what can happen as well, not just the trauma, just the trauma.
Exactly.
Yeah. I really appreciate everything you're saying, Cherene. I really appreciate your wisdom.
Thank you.
And your depth. And I'm just going to read. So things are changing, Andrea Lorient, my sister. So things are changing, and what I'm hearing you say is that it is us dinosaurs that need to change. Can you speak about that? Yeah, because the kids,
yeah, Andrea, to be honest, there was something I wanted to say, but I try to speak with compassion and lightheartedness.
Yeah.
But there are generations that need to pass on in order for there to be a peeling and refreshing of the new birth and the new age of love. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So I'm not wishing death on anybody. What I am saying is that human evolution is change is constant. Change is inevitable, but truth is constant.
Yeah.
So the change is inevitable.
Yes.
And so love always prevails. And we know that based off of just human evolution and earth, and making sure that we self-preserve, that nature will take its course and things will change for the better. I hope I did that in a beautiful way.
The old guard is dying, and I think that's what needs to happen, because I want us. We're coming into the age of Aquarius. I mean, I'm a bit woo. I'm a holistic person. We're coming into the age of Aquarius, and that is an age of literally humankind coming together. But we cannot, I believe, ignore that in the process toward humankind, we got to be clear on the people that have been damaged by a lack of that humankind system. And we don't want to sit in the trauma, but we also don't want to bypass the trauma.
Exactly.
We got to acknowledge it. We got to see it, that it's there, and we got to clean it up by the root, as you
said. Get to it
by the root.
Realize what is, clean it, focus on what can be, and do the work.
Yeah, disrupt the autopilot belief systems that show up. Disrupt. Thanks, Andrea. The thing I want to say here is that did you see the meme that Will Smith that racism is not getting worse, it's just getting filmed? So I love that. I love that, because that is exactly right on. That's exactly what's going down. And that's awareness. Right.
Exactly.
Thank goodness for cameras and phones and that.
Yes, I love media. I love what you can do with it. I love these
absolutely. So I want to just highlight your website. I'm going to take off some of this here and here so that we can be seen over over these things. But I want Cherene Francis is this incredible coach that works with businesses, human beings, and is a real, in my opinion, you're a leader. You're one of these conscious leaders, and a lot of people can benefit from your experience. So please seek out Cherene Francis. We're going to be doing a replay of this. There will be a replay of this particular conversation, and I'll share that link with everybody, the YouTube of this. And I want to say, Cherene, last words. I want to go with some last words before we sign off. You know, again, it's all about how can we continue to do the work of disrupting prejudice and racism. What are some good last words for us?
Okay, so education, doing your own research,
Right.
looking at both sides of the conversation. There's no benefit in one-sided conversations. Be open to hearing different perspectives and taking things in. That helps. You know, sometimes I'm reading different perspectives and I'm like, oh God, and then I have to go and, you know, do some of my own emotional, spiritual detox.
Yes.
But it's good for you. It's good for you. It's uncomfortable. A lot of this as well, I feel is, you know, put your money where it counts. And this is not just for the topic of racism, prejudice, but it's for anything that aligns with your values of human change. I'm trusting that people.
Oh, we just cut out a little bit. I think what Cherene was saying is put your money where it is important to continually fund people. What were you? Sorry, you were cutting out a little bit, Cherene.
Call, right.
Keep going, Cherene. You were cutting out a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, so I said first thing is to do your research, educate yourself.
You were saying put your money. You were saying.
Okay, that's the last thing. So put your money where it counts. Organizations that are aligned with values that uplift people and humanity in general is where you put your money. Putting your money is not based on skin tone or any prejudged thing. Okay. What I am saying is put your money where it counts to uplift all of humanity. That's what I'm saying.
Right on. And also, I would say, get out of denial. I would say get out of denial, and not you, Cherene, get out of denial. People, get out of denial. This does exist, and work to disrupt your autopilot thoughts about things.
Yeah.
So that, you know, get in there and don't just cover it up in a neat little bow. Get in there and excavate some of that subconscious prejudice that still exists within you. That is the work I'm doing. I'm encouraging people to do that courageous work within themselves. Thank you so much, Cherene. I so appreciate you taking the time to be here with me on Courageous Conversations. I want everyone to continually have courageous conversations with yourself, courageous conversations with others. These are not easy conversations. They're going to be uncomfortable, but I find that today, more than ever, people are receptive to the conversation, to being checked on racist talk or words that are not appropriate. Yeah, call them out. Be courageous in that regard, and keep yourself informed. Don't just whitewash it. Oh, that's an interesting word. But just don't just generalize it. Don't just spiritually bypass it. Get in there and do some work and have uncomfortable and courageous conversations. I'm encouraging people to join my closed group called Courageous Conversations with Victoria Lorien Fabish. It's a support group. It's a place where you will be heard and supported. So it's on Facebook. Do come on and follow Instagram, Victoria Lorien Fabish. What's your Instagram? Is it
Cherene Francis? Yeah.
Cherene Francis is Cherene's Instagram handle. Mine is Victoria Lorien Fabish. Join us. Follow us. We got lots to say, okay? All right. Also, don't forget, ChereneFrancis.com is the website to contact Cherene, and mine is visualizationworks.com. So I just want you to have a brilliant evening and allow yourself to be courageous with yourself and others. Blessings.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for being here. Take care, Cherene. Take care, everybody. Talk soon. And we'll be talking with the people that have been commenting, so that's great. Bye. Take care.